All right, y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more pattern testing. And today, I've definitely got a pretty interesting thing that I wanted to bring out here and try and see what happens. Because it definitely has a lot of controversy around it. A lot of people kind of like them. A lot of people really hate them. So I kind of want to get an idea of, well, do they actually work? And if it actually works, then how well does it work? So for what I've got out here today, I brought out this old guy. This is an older Mossberg 500, but it has one of these on it. This is an adjustable choke. This is technically not a poly choke. This is a Mossberg Select choke, but for all intents and purposes, they are the exact same thing. It is an adjustable choke where you can screw this collar in and out to constrict the end of the barrel more, kind of on the fly without having to change chokes. If you haven't seen one of these, I'll pull this off here so you can see. It's kind of got these little ribs on the end of the barrel here. And when you screw this collar down onto there, it gets tighter and tighter and squeezes those little ribs tighter and tighter inside the more you screw it down. So, pretty good idea in theory, but like I said, a lot of people seem to hate them, really. So, does it actually work or not? We're going to find out and see. And for quick reference, the shells we're going to be running are some of these, just some standard Winchester Super X 2 3/4 inch, 1 ounce load of 7.5. So absolutely a very, very common load that there's a good chance you're going to be running through this at some point if you have one of these. So as for today's initial test, I simply want to see, well, if I screw that in and out, does it actually affect anything or change our pattern? So for that, I have 3 big sheets of paper set up downrange, and I figured we'll stand at roughly 20 paces or so. It's not super close, but it's not super far either. It should give us a pretty decent idea of what our pattern actually looks like anyway at that distance. So we'll step back to about 20 yards. I'll shoot 3 shots, 1 at each paper, and for each shot, I'll screw that choke a little bit tighter, and what we'll essentially be doing is setting it at an improved cylinder constriction, a modified constriction, and a full choke constriction. So let's get you guys set up with a view of this target. It may not be the best view, but we'll take a closer look at them here in just a minute. And we'll start off with screwing it down to where we have an improved cylinder constriction. Then we'll tighten it up to a modified and then a full choke and just see, does the pattern change at all? And if so, what does it look like and what actually happens? So let's head over here to the target and shoot our 3 shots and see what we actually get. All right, so now we're down here at our 20-yard papers, and this is what we got. Now, we'll take a quick overview of them, and then we'll look a little bit closer at them here. So we'll start off real quick with our improved cylinder group. And yes, I did draw a very lumpy, not so amazing looking circle, but hey, it'll do the job. And most of our shot is within 24 inches, which is the diameter of that circle. And again, we'll take a closer look in just a second. But our modified choke did condense down a little bit into about an 18-inch circle size group there. So definitely an improvement. And our full choke condensed even tighter down into that group, which is about 16 inches for that circle there. But let's take a little bit closer look at how the actual pattern's grouped up close where you can see a little bit better. Okay, let's look at this improved cylinder group here. Now, as you can see, I didn't take the time to mark these hundreds of BBs or else I would have ran out of marker by the time it was over with. But it looks very much like an improved cylinder type of pattern. Definitely nothing special, but I mean, for 20 yards, 24 inches with a pretty even looking pattern like that would absolutely do the job for any kind of wing shooting, skeet shooting, small game hunting, whatever you would want to do with it. Absolutely. Now moving over to our modified choke group here, as we can clearly see, we had 18 inches, which is tighter than our improved cylinder constriction, which makes sense. And as you can hopefully see with the glares, our pellets are quite a bit more condensed down here closer together. And this is at the same 20-yard distance. Now, of course, we do have a couple pellets outside the edges there, but overall, that looks pretty good. 20 yards with a modified choke kind of constriction there. Clearly, it definitely changed and got tighter. So it seems like screwing that little collar down on there tighter absolutely does make a difference. Okay, and here's our full choke pattern here and 16 inches again for rough circle size. And it's very clear that we have a much tighter and hotter core area to our pattern there. We have very few pellets outside of that 16 inches, and most of it I would say is within probably 10 to 12 inches right there. So absolutely a big difference, especially coming from an improved cylinder all the way up to this full. So overall here, I would absolutely say that at least these old Mossberg Select chokes seem to actually do something. So after seeing this kind of performance here, we absolutely made a difference between all three, which is exactly what they're kind of claiming to do here. But I do have one more thing I want to try. That adjustable choke can screw down even tighter than that full choke over there. To the extent of when I measured it, it goes all the way down to a 670 for an inside constriction, which is turkey choke kind of range. So I think just for the sake of doing it, let's throw one more piece of paper up here and screw that choke all the way in as tight as we can go to right about that 670 constriction and just see what the pattern kind of looks like right next to this full choke here. If it makes any difference or if we start going backwards and blowing our pattern out. So let's throw one more sheet of paper up here and see what kind of performance we get. Okay, so after screwing that choke all the way as tight as we can get it to roughly a 670 constriction, this is what our pattern looks like. Now it is a 15-inch roughly for my circle there, so not a whole lot of gain over this full choke over here being 16 inches. But I think what we do see with this tighter constriction here is a little bit tighter overall pattern. Now the main central core there is pretty much the same looking back and forth between the full and this really tight constriction, but it's that outer few inches around the edge of our main pattern that I think really made the difference here. This one looks pretty tight and uniform all the way around it there with a few little pellets straggling around the edges, but our main core pattern area there is pretty tight and uniform. Whereas if we move over to our full here, we have a pretty much same central core area, but the outer few inches look a little bit more open to me. It may not even come across on the camera here when I'm trying to explain or show, but I do think the overall pattern as a whole is a little bit tighter with that choke screwed all the way in, which makes sense. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about this test here? It absolutely seems like that adjustable choke makes a very clear and obvious difference. So I would say it does what they claim it to do, really. But there has to be a reason why those chokes kind of went out of style 30 years ago or so, and why you don't really see it. On paper, and in thought, it seems like a pretty good idea and it seems to work, but why did they kind of go out of style? Is it because a lot of people did not like them for whatever reason? Or does it just have to do with the updated technology when people started going to actual interchangeable chokes where they could get different specialty chokes like turkey chokes and stuff like that? Let me know your thoughts and opinions about it down below. Have you tried one of those old poly chokes or Mossberg Select chokes or anything like that? How have they done for you? What is your opinion about them? Did you like them? Do you still like them? Did they do weird stuff for you and you're really not a fan of them? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to film for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as a mailbox where you can send things if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to the testing for y'all, so I'll see y'all in the next one.